So welcome to MailChimp Campaigns. My name is Jen. I'm in Dallas, Texas. I've been coaching for about 4 or 5 years now. We also have Michelle Foster with us, who's a PB coach, and she's going to, again, be facilitating questions. So a couple of weeks ago, we had Intro to MailChimp, and we talked about how to get your account up and running, how to import contacts into a list, how to create a list, how to group your contacts once they're in that list. So if those are some of the questions that you're hoping to have answered, it'd be best if you went ahead and went back and watched that recording after today's session, and you could reach out to us and we can send you that link if you don't already have it. Today we're going to talk about how to set up a template, how to use that template to create a campaign, and then how to send out and schedule a campaign. So those are sort of our 3 steps. Before we get started, as you're working on your templates and campaigns, we've had people in the past have some difficulty when using Internet Explorer. That's not been a problem that everybody has encountered. So if you've used Internet Explorer to set up a template in the past, it's perfectly fine. Just if you get started and the pictures explode over your screen, or some of the buttons are missing, or you're having some problems like that, it'd be a good idea to go ahead and change over to Firefox, Google Chrome, or another browser like one of those. And that should fix any problems that you're having functionality-wise. Let me go ahead and switch over to MailChimp here. Let me know if you can't see my screen. You should be able to see my screen. I've switched over to MailChimp. So if you're not seeing MailChimp, please let me know. This is the screen that you'll see when you sign in. And so we're going to start with templates. And to do that, I'm just going to click on templates at the top left-hand side of the screen. One of the things that is important that some people get confused about is the difference between a template and a campaign. So a template is where we're going to set up all the things that you do on a repetitive basis. So if your banner is the same from newsletter to newsletter, all your footer information is going to be the same. We're going to set up what fonts to use, what colors we're going to use. All those things that are the same from newsletter to newsletter, those are the things that we want to put into the template. Because then when you each time you go to start a new newsletter or a new campaign, you'll be able to start from that template. So that's what the template is for. There's some quirks about templates that I'll try to point out along the line that have made people kind of get stuck, I guess, as they were using these. But that's what you want to think about, the difference between templates and campaigns. Lots of people have liked in the past to replicate their campaign instead of using a template. So I've already created a campaign. I would rather just replicate it instead of having a template. There's some downfall to doing that. Okay, so really if you're going to replicate your campaign, you really only want to do that if you're sending out the exact same email to a different audience. You don't want to use that as your template. And the reason for that is when MailChimp creates a template, it's also generating links and kind of an archive and a history. And so when you start changing pictures and you start changing things around, if you're sharing those anywhere on social media, or if you do have your archive live and people go back and look at your old campaigns, you can start messing some of that stuff up. So you really want to be careful about replicating and changing it to send out a new one. You can, if you've already created a campaign and you really like the layout that you've already created, you can turn your campaign into a template. And I'll point that out as we're going along here a little bit later. But just keep that in mind. You really don't want to replicate a campaign to use that as a template. You want to make a template itself. If you remember in the first webinar, we did have some pre-made templates. So if you would like to start with one that we've already created, they are available to you. But we're going to go ahead and walk through creating a template from the very beginning. So I'm going to click Create Template in this top upper right-hand corner. And you'll see that there's a whole bunch of different options. We typically coach people to use this 1-column basic template. A lot of people like to have the 2 columns. They'd like to have sidebars and all that kind of stuff. However, it doesn't maintain that. MailChimp doesn't maintain that formatting when it goes onto a mobile device. So, for example, if you were to create a newsletter with a sidebar or a newsletter with 2 columns, when somebody opens it on their phone, it's going to turn to a 1-column newsletter. And so that can make formatting a little bit difficult because you really have to go back and forth and make sure it looks good on both platforms. I have seen, I'm not sure how this person did it, but I have seen a case where the formatting on the phone did maintain the sidebar along with the main content side by side. The downfall to that was that the font was really small and made it difficult to read. So one of the reasons that we encourage using MailChimp is so that your partners don't have to zoom in and out on their mobile devices. If you figure out how to force the two columns to stay on phones, then you have that problem again where people are going to have to zoom in and out. So those are some of the reasons that we really encourage the one column format. It typically goes better with your overall user experience. Okay. Let's go ahead and click. Okay. And notice we have a left and right side here. So anytime that you want to make an edit to your campaign or your template, you're going to see a preview of your template and your campaign on the left-hand side. And the right-hand side is the place where you're actually going to make your edits. So I can't click on the left and type into the left side of the template. I actually have to click on the right side of the screen, and that's where I'll make my edits. That'll make a little bit more sense as we go along. The first thing that we're going to do is click Design. So you'll see right now content is sort of highlighted. So we're going to switch over to the design side. This is all stuff that you'll only have to do this one time. Okay, so once this is set up, you won't need to change it again. The first place is page. A lot of the changes that I'm going to be showing you are going to be referring to Wycliffe brand. So the Wycliffe USA has come out with branding colors, branding fonts that they've asked us to use so that all of our communications sort of have a unified feel to them. And there's obviously a lot of diversity and a lot of changes variety that you can make within those guidelines. But we do ask if you're willing to use those. So that's what I'm going to be basing this template off, is those colors and fonts. Okay, so we're going to start with a full page. The first thing we're going to do is change the background. So you might not be able to see it on my screen or yours, but there's a real light gray that's going around the outside borders of my page. And we're going to change it over to white. Okay? To do that, you want all Fs after the pound sign. You have to keep this pound sign. Then after that, you put 6 Fs in, and it'll change it over to white. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to be looking for fonts. So there's 2 fonts that are the branding colors. One is Georgia, this one here, and then the other one is Verdana. You can pick whichever one you prefer, but once you choose one, go ahead and stay with it. So you don't want to flip-flop between Georgia and Verdana. And I'm going to change the font. So this 2020, it's a real dark gray. I'm going to change it to black by doing 6 zeros. Again, you have to have that pound sign. If you don't have the pound sign, it won't change the color. And then you just want to scroll down and make that same change over and over again. Typically in about 3 or 4 places on this opening screen. Then I usually ask people to go ahead and just scroll back up and double check. It's really easy to kind of skip over one of these areas. Once you've changed all of your fonts and colors, click Save. Now we're going to do the same thing with the pre-header. The pre-header is this box up here where it says view this email in your browser. So some people are happy to leave this as white. You're welcome to do that as well. Other people like to change it to one of the branding colors. So I'm actually going to change it to the branded blue. We're going to make all the branded colors are in a couple of places. All the branded information is in a couple of places. So we have a copy of the branded guidelines, the actual manual in Unity. And then that manual also has all the different colors that I'll be showing today, along with some other ones. We're going to put all those links into the FAQs so that you'll have easy access to all that information. If you do decide to make your pre-header a color, you'll notice that the link color is now no longer readable. So if you do use, say, the branded blue or red, you're going to want to change that text to white so that your partners can read it. So scrolling down, again, I'm going to change this to the font that I chose earlier. And then I'm going to change this to white. Now, this isn't going to actually make any change because it's font color. Okay, so this says font, and so they're considering this a link text instead of font text. So you actually have to scroll down further and find this pre-header link and change this to white. Okay, and you'll see that I went ahead and changed it. Some people ask if they can delete this link, view this email in your browser. We really encourage you to not delete that. The reason for that is there are some browsers that, for whatever reason, the email just doesn't appear right until they click on the browser and view it in the window, like a full browser window. So we encourage you to leave that there. Nothing bad will happen if you do delete it. It just might make it less convenient for some people to read. Okay. So go ahead and click Save. Next, we're going to look at your header, which is this top part up here. Okay. So this is already white. We just want to check for fonts and change the font to the one that you've already selected. I'm going to change this over to the branded blue, just so that I'm sticking with branding colors. You'll see that it's actually not that much different. It's just slightly different. And then we're going to look at the footer, well, no, the body, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Jen, you had that a little bit wrong. It was DA6, not 86.
Oops. Ha. Thank you. I thought it looked a little off. Okay. So I'm going to change this over to white. I'm honestly not even sure what this is. I don't know if you do, Michelle, but I'm not quite figured out what that change is. But
yeah, there is a line in the bottom that will show if it has a color, but it also has to have a pixel weight, and right now it's at 0, so it won't show until you do give it a weight.
That makes sense. So I'm going through again, and you'll see that I'm just changing the font skin to black and to Verdana. And if you chose Georgia, that's perfectly fine. Okay, click Save once you've changed those two things. Next is the footer, so we're going to be down here at the bottom of our page. Okay, again, some people will make the background of their footer white. Some people will make it match this top color up here. I'm not seeing too many people pick a completely different color other than white or what they've done in their pre-header, but feel free to make that look the way you think looks best. Again, we're going to change all of our fonts. This is one of the reasons you want a template, because you don't have to do this every time you go in to make your newsletter. Okay, I'm going to click Save. One thing I'd like to point out about the footer, please, 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 please do not delete the merge tags. Okay, you'll see there's several places where there's an asterisk, a straight up and down line, capitalized text, straight up and down line asterisk. Okay, so you'll see current year is like that, this company, HTML address. You're not meant to change those. So where it says current year, we don't want you to type in the year there. It's called a merge tag, and it's automatically going to change that for you when you send out your campaign. Okay, so don't change it. Also, don't delete it. Some people say, well, I really don't want it there, so I'm just going to delete it. MailChimp has required footer content. You have to have all these things here. You can't just randomly delete them. Right? If you do, MailChimp is able to shut down your account. And that has happened to a handful of people. I regularly have people have problems with this area. So if you do end up having some problems, go ahead and send me an email and we'll try to figure out what's going on. The one thing that you can change is where it says our mailing address. If you're not a married couple, if you're single, it's okay. Go ahead and switch that over to my mailing address. You can also add information here. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a little while. But you can add logos. You can add your phone number. You can add pretty much whatever you want. You just can't take anything away. Okay. Just keep that
Can I make a comment with that too, Jen?
Sure.
The part of that is there because of the requirements for the Spam Acts and the GDPR. So that's why MailChimp requires it. But you're also required to have that information in your newsletters anyway. But also when you post that on social media, so if you share it or somebody shares it for you, it's actually going to hide that information and protect your security. So that's another reason to leave it there and not type it in somewhere else, if that makes sense.
And we have a question that says, can you go back and change all these settings if you've already created a campaign? You want to use that to create a template after the fact. Okay, so what you can do, yes and no. So to do it, the way that you can do that is if you've already sent that campaign out, is you want to replicate the campaign first. Once you've replicated the campaign, now you can go in when you're doing in the design phase of it. Now you can tell it there's I'll show you this when we're in the campaign phase. Is there's a button in the top right hand corner, like up in this area here, that will say create a template, and that'll allow you to create the template off of the campaign. Okay, so I'll try to show you that button when we get over there. Mobile styles. Mobile styles is referring to exactly what it says. So if you want your campaign to appear a little bit differently on mobile devices, this gives you a little bit of control over that. The only specific thing I've ever encouraged people to change is this pre-header visibility. And this is a personal preference, okay? So right now it's on show. So this blue bar up here will double in width when it's like on a phone or a tablet. I personally don't like that on mobile devices, and so I always hit hide. Again, that's up to you. I've met plenty of people who like that being up there. So, the last thing is monkey rewards. Monkey rewards is where it says if rewards, HTML rewards. Okay, this is something that you cannot delete this, but you have one of two choices. You can either choose the white background or the black background. There used to be a ton of choices. I don't know when they changed it to only have two. But pick one. If you don't, they're going to pick one for you. So keep that in mind. I'm just sort of arbitrarily picking the white one. I like the light background because I have a colored footer. And then we're going to switch over to the content. So those are all the steps to get through the design phase of setting up your template. The next is content. Now again, as we're looking at content and what we want to include in our template, we only want to include the items that are going to commonly appear in all of our updates and newsletters, right? So in my template, I'm not going to put my newest update story or scripture engagement story. I'm not going to put the photo that I want to use for my next prayer update into my template, because those are things for a specific email. We only want things that are going to be common in all of our emails. Hopefully that'll make more sense as we go along, if it doesn't already. So looking at the first thing where it says logo, this would be a good place to put a banner. So if you use the same banner for most of your newsletters, that would be something that you want to include in your template. So to do that, we would just click on logo and then click replace. So this is probably going to be empty for you. So what you want to do, this is your content manager. And you want to go up to this upper right-hand corner where it says upload, and that's going to allow you access to the file system on your computer, and you'll be able to upload whatever images and banners and stuff you want to include into your template. Okay, so I've already preloaded some images in, so I'm going to click insert. You'll notice I've had some people ask questions about this. We have banners like this loaded into the templates that are available for you to use. You're not going to be able to change the banner that's already here. So this is saved as a picture. It's not saved as separate elements. You're not going to be able to change the picture, like the picture of me. You wouldn't be able to change that to a picture of you. You'd actually have to create your banner in an outside program. So in Publisher, in Word, in Canva, etc. Save it as a picture and then import it into MailChimp. Okay, so you're not going to actually make your banner inside of MailChimp. However, there are some things that you can do to the picture, one of which is the size. So you'll notice this is 600 by 200. One thing that you want to be careful about is you never want your picture to be wider than 600 pixels. Okay, so this is pixels. If you start getting images that are a lot wider, it's going to stretch out your formatting. Okay, so if you have a template and you're looking at it on a phone, or you're looking at it in certain email clients, and you have that at an 800 or a 2000, it's going to make it show up weird on that person's device. And so keep that in mind. We always want it to be at 600. One of the ways that you could change that size is by going to edit. Okay, so if I click edit, you'll see I now have a bunch of options. One of them is resize, and this is where I would resize that. As you're resizing, do not click this. If I click this, see it's gonna distort my image. And so when I change this, it's automatically gonna change this. If you click this, this stops automatically changing, and your picture gets squished or stretched, and then it starts looking really bad. Okay, so you only need to change that one number and click apply. The other thing that I'm going to change is, you see I have a bunch of space underneath my picture. To change that, I'm going to use the crop button. And bring that up. Say apply. Okay, and then it just cut off the bottom for me. You'll see there's some other things that you can do with your picture. I'm not going to walk through all of these tools, but if you're interested in playing with them, they are there for you. And click save. And click save again. Now scrolling down a little bit, there's a bunch of different options of things that you can add to your template. So what we're looking at right now is called a text box. One common thing that we encourage people not to do is, if you have a story or an update that, say, is 3 or 4 paragraphs long, it's best to put each paragraph into its own text box. Okay, so say this is one, obviously these are 3 paragraphs, okay, but I would go ahead and put this next text block in. Okay, and maybe take some of this out here. Usually your paragraphs are going to be longer than just 1 or 2 sentences, right? But I just want to give you an example. But you want it to be in separate, you want it to be in separate text boxes like this, because if after you've put all your content in, you decide you want to add a picture, or you want to add some other visual element in the middle of your story, you're not going to be able to do that unless it's broken up into text boxes. Okay, so maybe I wrote this email and I decided I want a picture after my first paragraph. Now I'm able to pull an image over and put it in between those 2 paragraphs. I'm going to slow that process down here in a minute, but I just want to talk about the text for a second. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you have one that has more text, do go ahead and break it up into different text boxes so that you're able to independently move those different elements around. Right? It's going to end up making things a lot easier for you if you decide to add things in the future. Okay. So looking at some of these different options, one is a text box, and you've already seen me use it. And all I did was I clicked on it and then dragged it over and let go. Okay, and that's all you have to do to add any of these elements to the left side. Just click and drag it over. The text box, like I said, you've already seen me do, and so it just looks like a regular white box that you're able to type into. A box text is going to make the background dark. Okay, you'll see this has a real dark gray background. What I've seen people use this for is they'll put their prayer and praise requests in here. And they like to do that because the dark background sort of gives their readers a visual cue that the content has changed. So up here I was sharing an update, now I've switched to sharing a prayer and praise requests. And so that's just one of the ways that I've seen this used. If you're going to use this for prayer and praise, you can go ahead and set it up a little bit if you want. Let's see, this kind of works like a word editor. Now this is not as smooth as a word editor. People have lots of problems with this oftentimes. You'll see I'm not putting in specific prayer and praise requests, again, because that's something that's going to change each time I do a newsletter. That wouldn't be the same content. So I only want to put the parts that are going to be the same each time. One thing to keep in mind that's really important is if you copy and paste text from a different program. For example, if you're using Microsoft Word and you formatted the text in Microsoft Word, so maybe you have certain line spacing, maybe you used a certain font, maybe using certain kinds of tabs, that kind of thing. If you copy and paste it over into MailChimp, it's going to try to maintain that formatting that was in Word. So all the formatting that we've set up in MailChimp is suddenly lost because it's trying to use the formatting from Word. Now you can use this paste as plain text, and that will drop the formatting that you had in Word, but you still might have to play with this a little bit to change the font size to match the rest of your text. Okay, so just be aware if you decided to do it that way, you might run into some issues like that. You can also highlight all of your text and hit clear styles. So copied and pasted some text into this area of the screen and you can't get it to look right. If you go ahead and highlight all of it and then hit clear styles, it'll kind of let you start from scratch. Sometimes it's the best option when this becomes a big problem. Okay, so once you've got that set, I'm going to click Save and Close. The next thing that you'll see here is the divider bar. People typically use this when they have two different topics that they're talking about in the newsletter. So maybe for the top of their newsletter, they shared a scripture impact story or a scripture celebration or some kind of video. And then the second part of their newsletter is maybe an update that's more personal to their Wycliffe ministry. And so to indicate that visually to their readers, you can use this divider bar. Again, just click and drag it over. You'll see it's gray. So I would change this color. So that's one of our Wycliffe colors. Okay. Now you have a divider bar there. Other people have gone over to Unity and they've pulled out some of the pattern bars, I think they call them in Wycliffe brand. But they have the strips with different patterns that go along with our Wycliffe brand that kind of look like this one up here, but they're thinner. If you go ahead and pull that into MailChimp, you can also use it as a divider bar. But if you're doing that, you wouldn't grab the divider bar, you'd grab an image and drag it over as an image. Okay, so that's just another option if you like the fancier ones that Wycliffe has created for us. So that's how a divider bar works. An image you saw me do a little bit earlier. This is if you want one image that's going to go all the way across the screen. Okay, so you'll see this all the way from the left to the right. Again, we don't want these to be any wider than 600. If you typically share an image in your newsletters, this would be a template. It's a good place to put it. If you only do an image one every 3 times you share a newsletter, then maybe you don't want to put it in your template. Okay, that's another thing to keep in mind is just because you put it in your template doesn't mean you have to have it in your campaign. Just because you didn't put it in your template doesn't mean you can't have it in your campaign. Okay, so you're going to have all of these options again when we switch over to actually creating the campaign. Again, this is just to make it as easy as possible for you so that you're not doing a lot of repetitive tasks every time you set up your emails. Okay. Another way to do images is with an image group, and this is going to let you have more than one image side by side. One thing to keep in mind when you use this option is that we no longer want our pictures to be 600 pixels wide because the 600 pixels is the full length of the screen. So now your images need to be approximately 255 pixels because you have this white space in between them and that sort of thing. You're going to see some other options show up as you start putting pictures in here. If they're of different dimensions, MailChimp is going to try to change the dimensions for you so that they look about the same. And you'll see that as you start placing images in. You'll see I can add more images. I can play with the style a little bit, giving them borders. There's different layouts. Okay, so if you want them to be top and bottom instead of side by side. Now, of course, we've talked about having 2 columns in mobile devices. So even though these 2 images are appearing side by side on a desktop computer or a laptop computer, when I switch over to my mobile phone, it's going to shift the images to the top bottom. Okay, so just make sure you're checking that before you send out your newsletters to make sure it still appears the way that you're hoping for it to appear. Another thing that you can drop over is the image card. The image card and the image caption are very similar. One's going to have that kind of dark gray background, and one's going to have a white background. The image card has a darker background, and it just gives you a place to put a caption to go along with your image. So if you need to credit the picture, if you need to talk a little bit, give a description for your picture, that's a way that you can do that. The image and caption is the same thing except it has a white background for the text. sometimes, so a lot of people do like to have that image in the image and Word side by side instead of top bottom. One of the ways that you can do that is if you go to settings with the image and caption, go to settings and switch the caption position to the left or right. Oops. So now they appear side by side, and you can change how big the image is. Okay. Now, once again, this is something that we're showing you to allow it to appear for you to have two columns. But again, on a mobile device, it's going to shift it. So part of it's on top and part of it's on bottom. So make sure that you take a look at that and that it's going the way that you want. Okay. Just double check those things as you're going through your newsletter. Okay. The next thing, we're not going to talk about the social share, social follow. I'll bring that up here in a little bit because we'll talk about this bar right here. But before we do that, I want to take a look at the button. So the button in the video. So the video works similar to an image card. So if you're going to include a video about the scripture celebration or something like that, this is one of the blocks that you can use. You can paste the URL to your video. So if it's a YouTube video, you just grab the URL and put it in here. And then you can give it some caption text and that sort of thing. Right, but that's how you add a video. Next is a button. And so people use buttons for different reasons. You can use it to link to your personal missionary page. You can use it to link to longer blog posts. So if you have a website and you have a newsletter update and you keep a blog as well, maybe you put a button for your blog. Maybe it goes to wycliffe.org. Whatever you want to use it for. Also, if you want to include a PDF version of your newsletter, I encourage people to really check with churches and make sure the church is getting the kind of newsletter that they need from you. We have had some complaints from churches when people don't send them a PDF version. MailChimp does not create a PDF version for you. Okay, so this is only an email version of your newsletter. If you need to have a PDF version or a printout version, you need to have two separate templates. So you need to have a template inside of MailChimp, and then you'll also have a template in Publisher or in Word or whatever you use to make that printable copy. That's where you'll want to do that. Okay, and then if you want to include that PDF, you would use this link to and change it to file. And then it's going to let you upload whatever file that you want to include. Okay, and then and then it would link it to that button for you. Other things that you can do with a button, so if I want this to be my personal missionary page, maybe I would put something like, remember that we're not supposed to say my ministry, it needs to be my Wycliffe ministry for IRS purposes. Okay, so please do follow that rule. You can also change the style, so if you want to round the corners more, if you want to change this color, obviously I would normally use the Wycliffe branded colors. Okay, so they do have a green if you want it to be green, but currently making everything blue because that's the code that I remember right now. You can also change the font. So this is one place where you have to manually change the fonts. So if you add a new button, always make sure to also change the font. You can go to settings and you can do fit. This will make it go all the way across the page instead of just fitting the text. And save and close. So you could have multiple buttons if you want. You can just have the one button. One thing to keep in mind, not only with buttons, but also with these social engagement links. So this is my Facebook page, my Twitter page, my LinkedIn page, my website, whatever I happen to put down here. We'll talk about this one a little bit more. Typically, if you include a button or a link of any kind, but you have not talked about that button in the body of your email, 90% of the time, at least 90% of the time, nobody's going to click on any of those links. Okay, so one of the stories that I share is that I've had these social buttons on the bottom of my newsletter for the past 6 years. Well, and I have a partner who's very dedicated. She prays for me all the time. I get lots of messages from her. She's just been a really good invested partner. However, I'd say about a year ago, she emailed me and said, I didn't know that you had a LinkedIn account. It's the first time I've ever seen it. But that link had been there for the past 5 years. And it was just the first time that she saw it. And so just kind of keep that in mind. If you have a button or a link that's really important to you, that you really want people to click on, you're going to have to talk about that button. So, for example, I had some partners request that I start texting them my prayer updates, my prayer requests. So like a lot of my partners like to pray for these webinars. And they wanted a text message the day of to remind them to pray for it. And so I created a button with a sign-up form, so partners who wanted to be a part of that could use the form to sign up. But in order to get them to click on it, I first had to write a paragraph saying, I've had some people express some interest in engaging in prayer in this way. If you're interested in being a part of that, please click on the button below to sign up. All right, now that link, I had quite a few people go ahead and sign up, but it's because I talked about it. Okay, so if you include buttons and links and nobody clicks on them, don't be too discouraged. That's really, really common. Okay. So that's good for buttons. Looking at this social engagement, these are, I believe, social follows. So the difference between social share and social follow. Social share means that you're giving people the opportunity to share your email on their social network page. So if I brought the social share over and somebody clicked on the Twitter button, it's going to open up in Twitter so that they can share my newsletter on their Twitter feed. Social follow means when they click on Twitter, they're going to go to my Twitter account. So one lets them share, one lets them go to my content. Okay, so I always use the social follow. And that's what this is here. This is a social follow that automatically shows up in your template. One thing is I don't like the social shares the social follow buttons to be in my footer. And so I always take it out and pull it up higher. And to do that, you'd see these 9 dots that are off to the left. If I click on it and then drag it up, it'll allow me to pull it out of the footer. Now it has a white background. Some things that you can do with it is you can decide which social media options you want to share. So if this one right now has Twitter, Facebook, and then just a random website. If I want it to be Twitter, you would change this because you don't want it to be just random Twitter. If they click on just twitter.com, they're going to go to their own feed. So you'd want to change this so that it goes to your Twitter account. And then you could type something like follow me on Twitter. You don't see the font right now, but you will here in a couple of minutes. I'll show you how to make that appear. This one is Facebook. Again, you don't want to just go to facebook.com. You want it to go to your personal Facebook page. So you actually need to go to your Facebook profile, then grab the URL and share it here. If you have a husband and wife, you can share both husband and wife's Twitter, both husbands and wife Facebooks by adding. So if I add another service, it'll let me add another Facebook or another Twitter account. What you want to do if you're sharing two, because it's going to look the same, right? If I add a second Facebook account, both of the circles are going to be blue Fs. So you'd actually want in this link text, you would want to say something like Beth's Facebook, and then the other one would say Greg's Facebook. So you'd want to put the name of whoever's Facebook account it is so that people know what they're clicking on. If you're just a single person and you're not putting both, you can say, follow me on Facebook. These are just suggested wordings. You can put other things there. If you don't have your own website, you probably don't want to have this one here. So you can either click the minus sign, and then I'll just get rid of it, so I only have 2 options. Or I can add another service, and maybe there's lots of options in here. Okay, so maybe I want to include my LinkedIn account. Maybe I want a special link for somebody to email me. Okay, some people, you'd have to change this to your email address. Okay, so. And then send me a message. Or you could say something like I've seen people put, send me your prayer requests, email me, something like that. And when you're done, there's also style and settings. So style, is going to let you change the color. So again, we don't want this dark gray color for our font. We'd want it to be black. Some people put a color behind. Put a color, if you have a colored background, of course, again, you would want to make the text white instead of black. Jill?
Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to ask you right now. I was going to let you finish.
Go ahead.
So one of the things is for a website, we often recommend that people do wycliffe.org if they don't have a personal missionary page. And also we have some people asking, you know, if they don't have social media, how can they hide the symbols, which you did do once really quickly. Do you want to show it once more when you get a chance?
Yeah. So there's two answers. Oops. There's two answers to how to hide these links. First of all, if you don't want any of them, you would hover over this, hit the trash can, and they would all go away. So this whole section would just disappear. A lot of people do that. If you want just one or two of them, you would hit this minus sign. So I don't want to share my email, so I'm going to hit the minus sign, and now I just have Facebook and Twitter. Again, so I could get rid of Facebook too, and now I just have Twitter. So you can add or delete as many as you want. And so I could keep adding these, and they would let me put up a whole bunch.
And you can have multiple websites there too, right? They just have to have individual addresses.
Right. So you can have multiple websites, you can have multiple emails, you can have multiple Twitters, you can have multiple of any of these. You just want to make sure that you have the appropriate link, and then have some sort of text that indicates to people what they're going to click on if you're going to make text visible. So if I had 5 different social media sites here, I might not put any text because now it's going to be really crowded. If I only have 2 or 3, I might go ahead and show the text.
But if you have 5 emails, you probably do want the text so they know which ones they're clicking on.
Yeah, if you're doing the same of anything, so the same website, if you're doing 2 websites, 2 Facebooks, 2 Twitters, 2 emails, you want to make sure that you include the name of what they're about to click on, or they won't click. Okay. So going back to style, we've already done that. Settings. This is where you can change whether or not you see the font or not. So right now it's icon only. You can do text only, which I really don't recommend because that's not obvious to me that those are links. It just looks like words that are in the wrong spot somehow. You can do both text and icon. That's typically what I do. You can make it full width, fit to size. This is, I think, going to depend on whether or not you have a colored background. If you have a colored background, it would shift how much space the color is taking up. And then you have layout. So this is a layout that I use. A lot of people use different ones. So you can just kind of click through these and see which one's going to work best for you. Okay. And then once you've chosen the layout that you want, you can also pick an icon style. So you can keep it as colored. If you have a colored background, you're probably going to want to switch it over to white. Okay. So you have some different options. Another thing to keep in mind, you can also do outlines. Okay, so there's actually quite a bit of options here, is that you want to pick one style and stay with it. So you don't want to have one style this newsletter, different style the next newsletter, and different style the next newsletter. These are one of those things that you want to kind of keep the same. So once you have the feel that you want, prepare to kind of stay with that. Click save and close. And so those are the elements of the body of your newsletter. The next thing that we're going to look at is the footer. Right? I don't like this little white line that goes all the way across. If you like it, feel free to keep it. If you want to get rid of it, you get rid of it just like we would the social media part. We'd click on the trash can, click delete, and now it's gone. Okay? Again, it's entirely up to you. If you really like it, feel free to keep it. If not, that's how you get rid of it. I've had some people email me. You'll see that there's a black box around my footer right now. And I'll get emails from people saying, how do I get rid of the black box that's around my footer? Black box actually isn't there. Okay, so if I click someplace else, the black box is now around the thing that I clicked on. So all the black box is doing is showing you what you're working on right now. Okay, so don't be, I've done that myself. Okay, so don't be frustrated. I would have a black box around it and be like, I don't have a border set up. I don't have, what's wrong? I don't understand why it's there. And then I finally clicked away. I was like, oh, It was just showing me what I was working on. Okay, so keep that in mind. Again, please do not delete your merge tags. Okay, you need to keep these merge tags. Feel free to change this if you want. Again, if you're a single person, you probably want this to say my mailing address instead of our mailing address. The information that it's going to use here is going to be based off the profile you set when you started your account. The last couple of weeks ago, we walked through step by step. Here's where you put your address. Here's where you put your email. The information that you put there is what's now going to show up here. Okay. One of the things that I like to do, and not everybody does, so this is your own personal preference, is I like to have more information down here in the footer. And the way that I do that is I make it into 2 columns. Now again, when I go to a mobile device, it's going to shift back to 1. But for the desktop view, I go ahead and do 2 columns. And to do that, I go over to Settings and then pick 2 columns. Okay, and then you save and close. Now you'll see it copied the information. So the exact same information that's on the left is now also on the right. You obviously don't have to have the same information twice. Okay, so now I can delete it from one side. And if I scroll down, I'm only going to see the information that's in column 1. If I want to see the information in column 2, I have to go right here and actually click column 2 so it's underlined. And now I'm able to see what's in column 2. I'm going to go ahead and delete all of this. And this is where I would add my own information. So for example, I always have this in my newsletters. Okay. This is giving information to people on how they can write a check for my Wycliffe ministry. And it has that note saying, please include a separate note stating preference for the Wycliffe ministry of Jen Woodrum, account number. Obviously, you'd want to put your own information in there. But I include that in all the my newsletters. And then I like to include a logo. A logo is an optional component. You don't have to have a logo. If you do, this is the only time that you want to do this, okay? So before, when we were adding images up here, we would always grab an image content block and drop that content block here before we add the images. In the footer, you do only in the footer, you do it a little bit different, okay? In the footer, you want to use this icon right here that has the little mountains and the moon. And we're just going to choose the logo. Insert. Now, obviously, we don't want the logo to be 1621 pixels. That would be a massive, massive logo. So you're going to have to maybe play with it a little bit to get it the size that you want it to be. Let me start. I want to say that's too small. Okay, I click Save and Insert Image, and now you can see the logo is right here. Some people want it to be a little bit smaller, someone a little bit bigger. I got the Wycliffe from the logo from Unity, which will be a part of what's in your FAQs. There's a link to that. You'll notice that I can't see it on the right side. And I can't see it on the right side because it's white. And so if I highlight it, you'll be able to see where it is. You still can't see what it is. So don't be taken too off guard by that. Okay.
So, Jen, we've got a few questions piling up.
Sure.
So one is related to footers here. We're planning to send out campaigns in a language other than English. Can we change the footer to another language than English? And I think that might be tied to the merge tag question.
Okay. MailChimp has specific help pages about doing newsletters in different languages. I would encourage you to go ahead and look up some of that information. I'll try to add that to the FAQs this time out so that you have access to the links. But I know they do have some specific instructions on how to do other languages. So I know they do make accommodations for that.
Okay, and then another one which may be more commentary than question, but there might be a question here too. If you use 2 columns for the footer, wouldn't you use 2 columns for the content, knowing it will show 1 column on a mobile device? On a desktop device, it seems like 2 columns might look better. And then I'm also going to have you show where you can preview what the mobile looks like in the preview and test, Jen.
Well, I'm going to do that when we go over the campaign. Is that okay? Or you want me to do it here too?
Whenever we had a question about it, I had already answered it, but
yeah. Okay. So a couple of things. One is, obviously, I can't stop you from using multiple column template. If you're going to use multiple columns, you're going to use multiple columns. Okay. We don't police that. If you decide to do that, you decide to do that. just be cautious. Okay, so in the footer, I know exactly what's going to happen when this switches over to 2 columns. Okay, I've done it several times. I know what it looks like. I'm happy with what it looks like. A couple of things about using 2-column templates. One is you need to watch and make sure it's really going to show up the way you want it to. Depending on how you put images in, depending on how you've put prayer requests in, is that now going to show up in a format that's still understandable, that still makes sense, that still looks okay when it switches over to the mobile device and becomes 1 column. Another thing is that people have had a difficult time getting their content to line up correctly when using multiple columns. So the adjustment would be slightly off for whatever reason. One is I'm not entirely sure how to fix that because I don't personally use a multiple column template. You're welcome to play around with it. I've seen it go really badly for people. It's created space issues, formatting issues. It's just caused all sorts of problems. So if that's something that you really, really, really want to do, go ahead. Just be cautious, okay? Make sure that you look, we're gonna show you how to do a preview here in a minute. Make sure you use your previews. Make sure you're sending your test emails. Make sure you're really looking at those things to make sure it looks okay for your end user. Because if you send them a newsletter and they open it on their phone and it doesn't make any sense, they're just gonna close it, right? They're not gonna keep trying to figure it out most of the time. So just be aware of what you're getting into if you decide to do that. One other thing to keep in mind is your level of comfort in using technology. So I've had a couple of people who've tried to use 2 columns who weren't super comfortable with technology. And that was one of the problems they ran into, is they really had to play with MailChimp a lot before they could get it to work right. They were just kind of what I alluded to earlier. So just be aware that it might be a bigger headache than what you're looking for if you decide to go that route.
Do you mind if I speak into this as well? So one of the things about MailChimp which makes it wonderful is that it reformats for multiple devices, right, and multiple screens. But the loss is you don't have the ability to control the same way you would if you were doing something in, say, InDesign. You kind of have to give up some control. And the more you play with things, the worse it gets rather than the better. And even if it looks right on your screens, it may still be messed up for other people on your list, which is why we advocate that simpler is actually better. And 1 column has the least amount of problems for the most amount of people.
Also, if you think about opening up something on your phone, if you open up something to read on your phone and there's tons and tons and tons of text, what is the likelihood you as a user are going to keep reading, as opposed to something that has, like when we talk about screen shares, so in your printed newsletters, we always encourage people to only use 1 page. Now that you're in MailChimp, you don't have 1 page anymore because you just keep scrolling. But you don't want people to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, because the likelihood that they're going to read all that content is very low. So we want to keep it short.
And that also includes scrolling up and down again, too. So if you have 2 columns, they're going down, then back up, then down, then back up again.
Yeah. But and if there's 2 columns on a mobile device, and so I have, like I said, I have in 1 or 2 scenarios seen where it maintained the 2 columns, which sounds like a good thing, except for that you can't see it anymore because now the text is really tiny and you have to zoom in and zoom out, which is one of the things that we're trying to prevent by using MailChimp. Looking at a test, one thing about tests that have thrown people off is when you do a test of your template, okay? When you test your template, these merge tags are not going to change. You're not going to see the date fill in. You're not going to see the address fill in. It's going to look exactly like that, like this. The reason for that is because when this information fills in, it's pulling it from whatever list you connected it to. So you can actually have a different address for each list. You can have a different email for each list. There's a lot that you can do to modify or to make specific lists for people, for each list. Because of that, your template is not attached to a list, right? So when you go to set up a campaign, you're sending your campaign to one of the lists of your contacts. Hopefully you only have 1 list. Again, we've talked about a couple of weeks ago why you might have more than 1. but it's once it's connected to that list that they know what to put into the template. So don't be shocked or dismayed by that. Okay, if you do a test template, this is going to look just like it looks right now. Right. To do a test, you'll go up to this top upper right-hand corner where it says preview and test, and you'll enter into preview mode. So same thing, if I send a test email from here, this footer information isn't gonna change. It's not gonna put the address in, it's not gonna put any of this information in. It's just gonna look like this. So don't be taken off guard by that. So we're gonna enter into preview mode. And it's gonna show me what my newsletter looks like in a browser. This is not what it used to do. Okay, so this is what it looks like in desktop. And you'll see that you have a mobile option. Okay, so this is what it would potentially look like on somebody's phone. You'll see how my footer became one column. Okay. And you'll see even like my buttons and stuff, they were all side by side and now they're not anymore. Okay. This inbox isn't going to work for most people because it's not a free feature. You have to pay money. And then once you pay money, they allow you to do previews in different kinds of email accounts. What you can do instead is that's where a good place is to start sending out your test emails. Is if you send it to test emails, you can start saying, well, this is what's going to look like in Google. This is what it's going to look like in Outlook. This is what it's going to look like on my phone. So that's typically a better way to check where it's going to end up looking like. But that's kind of what we wanted to share about templates. It's pretty straightforward. Once you've finished, you click Save and Exit. You want to give your template a name. Give me anything you want. Some people have a template for newsletters and a different one for their prayer updates. If people who are doing recruitment often want one template for recruitment, one for their personal stuff. If you want to create another template that is very similar to the one you've already created, but maybe you're changing some details in the footer, or maybe you're changing a couple of colors or just a banner. I don't want to recreate the whole thing. I just want to make one or two changes. Is you can use this down arrow and hit replicate, and it'll make you a copy of your template so now that you have two. And then you can change the one to be whatever changes that you want it to make for the second template. Okay.
Jen, do you know what the current test email number is that's allowed? It used to be like 8, and they used to show it. Now they're not showing it, and people are running into the case where they have sent out too many test emails, but they don't know what the limit is.
I'm not sure either. I thought it was 12, but that was a year ago, so that might not be accurate anymore. What Michelle's talking about is there's a limit to how many tests you can send out per campaign. I'm not sure what that is for templates. I don't know if it's different for templates in these campaigns or not.
I'm going to go poke around and see if I can find out while you're talking.
Sure. For campaigns, you're going to be sending out test emails to maybe your RC, maybe your PD coach, maybe your PD coach and an RC. When you send out those tests, and probably tests to yourself, is that you can send too many tests. And Michelle's going to look up that number for you, but when you hit that number, all of a sudden you can't send tests anymore. What I've told people to do, if that happens to them, is to go ahead and replicate the email, delete the one that they were working on, and just start working with the replicate. The replicate's going to be the exact same with what they were already doing, but it'll reset the counter on the test emails. Okay, so that's a little bit of a workaround if you need to send out more tests than MailChimp maybe wants you to. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and switch over to campaigns. Remember, campaigns are your actual email. So I finished creating my template. Now I want to send out a newsletter using that template. To use the template, we actually go over to campaigns. So I'm going to click on campaigns in this upper left-hand portion of MailChimp. Okay, and then I'm going to hit the Create Campaign button in the upper right-hand corner. Okay, I'm going to choose Email.
Okay, Okay, Jen, I've linked the document that I found about the test emails and how they figure that out. There is a number, and there's also based on a 24-hour period. So it's multiple things in factor.
Okay, if you want to send me that link, I can add it to the FAQ.
Sure, it's in the chat too.
Have you ever been doing this for an hour?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I did that. I've never actually talked about templates for the entire hour. If you need to go, feel free to go. I apologize that this went so much longer than it usually does. I'm going to continue talking. I'm going to go through how to use a template for your campaign and then how to send it out. If you have to leave, go ahead and do that, and you'll still receive the video once this is over. And so I apologize for going long. I've never done that before. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and keep going. You're free to stay. You're free to go if you need to. So giving your campaign a name. Some people have cute names for these. I'm just going to put October. Click begin. So first you're going to choose two. So you're choosing the list of contacts that you want to send your newsletter to. My Wycliffe Partners. This is also a place where you can choose a specific group if you want it to do your group instead of the entire list. So I would go to group or new segment and choose the group that I wanted to send it to.
Jen, do you want me to go ahead and link the survey as people have to go?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. The survey will be in the chat if you need to go. We'd appreciate it if you would take some time to do that. Next, we need to, you can edit who it's from. You don't have to, but this is where you have your name and email address. So if you want to change it for the specific email, you're able to do that. Subject, so this is a subject that people are going to see in their inbox. I'm just going to put, there has been some research that shows that people get more open sometimes with these little icons, the emoticons. I think it probably depends on what generation that your partners typically are. So I think it's probably more effective for people who are younger than it is for older generations. I know myself, I'm less likely to open an email that has an emoticon. So think through what's going to be best for you and your partnership team. The preview text, there's some research that has showed that up to 24% of people will only open the emails if they like what is in that preview text. So this can actually be something that's really helpful. One place that I've seen this, hopefully this is okay to say, but I think it's touch points. When touch points comes out, I know for me that preview text says something about responsive emails instead of what's in the touch points. So that's something to keep in mind is if you don't put preview text here, MailChimp is going to choose for you what that preview text says. So it's usually beneficial to go ahead and take the time to write a short message here. Some people will just use the first line of their email, so the first sentence from their story. Some people will grab one of the headings and put it there. Some people will write, one sentence summary of what's going on in their newsletter. But something that here that people are going to see that preview text and know it's something that they actually want to read. Okay, so it is important to try to think that through. Okay, and then click Save. And then Design Email. So Design Email is where we're going to go ahead and pick our template. To do that, instead of going from layouts, we're going to go to Saved Templates. And these are the templates that we just created. Okay, so I'm going to click on the one that I want. And now we're starting from where we ended over on templates. Okay, so now I can go through and personalize all this. Now I'm going to go in and actually put in my pictures. Okay, and you would change this because you don't want it to say it's time to design your email. Okay, I'm obviously just putting random text in here, but this is where you would actually go in and put the content in that you want to send to your partners. So I'd go through and change all this. Okay, I'm taking the time to change all of it because it's not going to let me show you how to send if I have default content in any of these areas. Okay, so if I were to go to try to send this and it has the same content that was in my template, it's going to put up a little red X and say, you can't send this because you forgot to change something. Okay. And so then I'd add my prayer and prayer request, my praise and prayer requests, and make any other specific changes that I want to make for this campaign. And now I want to do the preview and test. So this is the same as what we just looked at in the templates. You're sending out your test email. You can go into preview mode. If you're sending a test email to 2 people, so for example, it's your PD coach and your launch coordinator, or your PD coach and your RC, what we prefer you to do is, instead of sending the test email directly from MailChimp to each of us, we would rather you send, so what I mean by that, so when you go in here, is don't put your PD coach and your RC or LC's email address here. Put your own email address so the test mail goes to you, and then forward it to your PD coach and LC or RC. The reason for that is the LC, RC, PD coach, and all your acronyms, we all want to see that the other person received it, because we as PD coaches are waiting for feedback from those other people, and we need to make sure that we want to see that they got it. Okay, so it's easier for us to have a conversation if you just go ahead and send it to yourself and then forward it to us. So please try to keep that in mind as you're doing your test emails. That's really all there is to it. So hopefully once you have your template set up really well, it won't take you very long then to put the content in for your newsletter. Okay, and that's what we want to do. We want to make this step fairly easy. So once you've gotten all of your content in that you want to send out, you click Save and Close. So I still have some default content in there. It's giving me the red X. What did I not change? Possibly this. I know that doesn't look good, but I'm just trying to figure out what they don't like. I don't see anything else, do you, Michelle? I think that's what they didn't like.
Sorry, I was not paying attention, honestly. The email link that I had about the test emails, the way that MailChimp has redone their website, you can't link to their tech help anymore, and it went to my campaign, and so people are having trouble with it at the moment. So we will get that information in the FAQs.
Okay. I'm going to get rid of these because maybe that's the problem. I've never had this much problem figuring out what the default content. That was it. Okay. So it will also make sure that you changed your links. So if it's accusing you of not changing some of your content, it might be that you've set up one of those buttons without putting your personal information in there. So that's helpful to know. But once you have all those steps done, you're now ready to send it. You'll see that there's connect to Facebook and connect to Twitter. I'm going to talk a little bit more about social media in the tips and tricks webinar, because obviously we've ran out of time today. And so I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about sending and scheduling. So if I were done, if I had all my content in, I set up my to from subject lines and all of that, ready to go. If I want it to go out to all my partners right now, I would click send and it would send. So it's just how an email would work, right? You click send when you're done writing it. If I want it to go out at this specific time. So again, there's a lot of research that's out there about this. Some of the research I've read has said things like, it's best to send it out on a Tuesday and Thursday because of the way people's moods and attitudes are throughout the week. Tuesday and Thursday have seemed like better days than others. They also encourage things like 6 a.m. and 12 p.m. The reason for that being is that's around the time people arrive for work. It's around the time people come back from lunch. And now your email is at the top of their list when they first sit down in front of their computer. So that's kind of the thought process behind that. Now other people have come back and said, you know what, I get better opens when I send it on Saturday night. I get better opens when I send it on Friday. Some people feel like they need to send it on a specific day for churches, that kind of thing. So really think through your contact list, what's going to work best for you, your partnership team. It might be different, a little different for each person. So I've played around with mine a little bit, and Thursday morning has been what's been best for me. So mine goes out at 6 a.m. on Thursday morning. Now, I'm not always awake at 6 a.m. on Thursday morning. I'm not always in front of my computer at 6 a.m. Sometimes I have other meetings. Sometimes I need to be someplace else. So if you're going to be someplace else, you don't want to have to worry about it. You can actually schedule your email to go out at that time. So if we hit schedule, I can now pick the day. So when I click on the calendar, it lets me pick Thursday. Well, I'm going to pick a date way in the future so I don't accidentally send this. And then you pick the time that you want it to go out. You do want to make sure that you've checked your time zone. So my time zone is actually the central time zone. So this would go out at 5 a.m. in my time zone. Most of my partners are in central time zone. So I would want to take the time to click edit and go change this over to central. When you click edit, it takes you over to your account settings. So you actually exit the screen and you would have to come back to work on scheduling it. So don't be surprised if and when that happens for you. Okay, so once you have your time zone set correctly, chosen your time, chosen your date, now you can go ahead and click schedule campaign. Okay, so you get the little monkey hand that says rock on. You would have also gotten a monkey hand if you would have just sent the campaign instead of scheduling it. And that's all there is to it. If you decide that you've sent the campaign or I've scheduled the campaign, but I wish I would have included a couple of other partners. I wish I would have added a video that I didn't, or something changed yesterday, or something changed today, and now my update's not correct. I want to go back and change it before it goes out. You can do that if you scheduled it by going to pause and edit. So I go to pause and edit. I'm now able to make changes to my newsletter again, but then you need to schedule it again or send the campaign. Okay, so once I hit resume campaign, it's going to have me set this information again to send it out. I'm not going to do that this time because those people would be very confused if they receive this as a newsletter. Okay, but you are able to stop the sending if you've done a scheduled campaign. And that's basically what we had planned on going over this week. So we talked about how to set up your template, how to set up your campaign based off of your template, and then how to send the template or the campaign out. Lots of people end up having more questions once they get going on this. You're free to reach out to me at jen_woodrum at wycliffe.org. You're also free to email pd_webinars_USA at wycliffe.org. I believe Michelle probably put those into the chat, and they'll be in the FAQ as well. We do try to do workshops from time to time that lets people get some more practice on how to use the skills that we talked about in today's webinar. But don't struggle for too long on your own. You know, if you've been struggling for an hour, don't spend the next 5 hours doing it as well. Reach out and ask your question, and we'll try to get back to you as quickly as we can. One thing I would like to say is if you're trying to do your newsletter and you need to be out like in a short period of time, that's not a good time to reach out to me because I can't always get back to you quickly. Okay, so if you send out an email and you want it out the very next morning, I might not get back to you in time. Okay, so do keep that in mind. I do the best that I can, but I'm not always able to get back as quickly as some people would like. So if you need a newsletter to go out quick and you've not used MailChimp yet, you might want to wait till your next newsletter before you use MailChimp. Save yourself some stress. Okay. But again, feel free to reach out. We're happy to help as we can. And next week will be, I think it's next week, right? Next week we have MailChimp tips and tricks. We're going to talk a little bit about the report feature of MailChimp, how to read those reports, what the statistics actually mean, how you can use them to be more helpful. And then we'll go over some of the other features of MailChimp that you don't have to know, but a lot of people like to know them. And then in our advanced webinar, we'll talk more about the subscribe forms and final welcome forms and some of the other cool tools that go along with MailChimp. So thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you next week. I will go ahead and stay around, so if you have questions, feel free to keep asking. But I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.